Hello, 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 guys. So I have here Miller, and he is the co-living. Hi, Miller. He's the co-living authority. So I am so excited to have him here. He's writing a book about co-living. Should be out in a couple of months. He has a lot of experience, and I'm so excited to have you here, Miller. And can you just give an intro? How did you get to real estate, and especially how did you get into co-living?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Always look forward to, informing people and educating folks about this strategy, which is sort of old and sort of new, right? I mean, people have been renting rooms like probably for thousands of years. And now it's becoming a little bit more mainstream as like an alternative way to get cash flow, instead of short term or midterm. This is, another way that you can do it. So thanks for having me. So high level, kind of how we got into this. My wife and I started in real estate around 3 years ago. We moved from Tennessee to Colorado Springs, which is where we own most of our properties at. And we saw this as an opportunity to, do our first house hack, which is how a lot of folks will get into renting rooms. That's kind of where we started, and like a natural spot to really start this strategy.
How long
honestly.
ago was it? Just so I have an idea, because
Yeah, that was 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, so it is a strategy where, like, if you are diligent and willing to learn and willing to improve your systems, it's a big systems strategy, honestly. You can scale it. So over 3 years, we've built. Now we didn't build them, but I just mean like our portfolio is built to 6 properties and 41 rooms over that 3 year period. So super high level. That was house hacking one of them, getting good, learning the ropes, renting out 3 rooms, learning how to manage those, and then kind of building the systems that were kind of overkill for 3 people, but would allow us to have 9 once we went to the next place, and then, blah, 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 until we got to the 6th one that's like 41 rooms.
So and then when you guys started 3 years ago, because I kind of heard about co-living 2 years ago, but was like, oh, okay, it seems so far, and like every new thing that comes to the market, right? Let's think about Uber. Uber, when it first came out, like how a stranger's gonna get in a car and go take from point A to point B was, like you don't think that was possible. Same thing with short terms, Airbnb, right? When they first start out renting rooms at your house, what are you talking about? This is not gonna go well. And here we are again with co-living. So what do you tell people like that are here, like how would people live in the same room? We did this in college, right? That's co-living, living together, renting by the room is not new. But how, unrelated people, what is the idea of housing for those people? Where did it came about for you to say like, okay, it's not only going to be people that I know, but I'm going to open up my room and build more houses and create a system so I can scale this asset?
Yeah, it very much 3 years ago was the Wild West days of this strategy. And honestly, it still is. Like, we're a little bit more, the industry's getting a little bit more sophisticated, but it still is. Like, I mean, 2015 days of Airbnb is like, kind of like what I compare it to. It's like, okay, like, people are kind of starting to do it. Okay, there's not really any softwares or, mini softwares yet for it. So that makes it challenging as well. You got to kind of, jump into the deep end and kind of figure out how to swim is kind of what it feels like. So for us, 3 years ago, maybe there were some, but they weren't big yet. But so there weren't any like online education sources for it. The only people who were really renting rooms were people who were house hacking, and they'd rent 2 or 3 rooms, and most of the time they would move out of that house and just turn it into a midterm rental or something. Like, no one was thinking about doing this at scale, or it was very few people that were. So honestly, we had no outside inspiration for this. It was just kind of like, okay, like I was a nuclear rocket scientist before this, and now I'm full-time doing this. But it was, of course, I was a very systems, data, that sort of thing. So it was something where I sat down and was like,
integrator. We call it integrator.
Yes.
I'm part of some
Yeah.
too. So there's the visionaries, and then there's the integrator. So, but you're
Yes.
visionaire too, right? If you think about it, it's just right. You are
Yeah.
doing this with your wife. Do you have partners, or how you scaling it?
Yeah, so it's the operations and everything is mostly me and a VA, a virtual assistant. So I'll break it down like this. So acquisitions is all me, right? I'm the one uh, looking for properties. The VA helps with that a little bit, but mostly it's me looking and running the numbers and that sort of thing. I'm building the relationships with partners. We're buying a lot of them with partners these days who, bring a lot of the cash, and then we do, a lot of the work in exchange. Not quite passive, but so I'm doing that piece as well. Operations is 80% VA, 20% me. Still trying to navigate that. Honestly, I haven't figured out how to manage people yet. Like it's a part of my journey that I'm in right now. And then yeah, I guess those are like kind of the big hitters there. Yeah.
Yes. So you talk about systems, right? So so you do not use PadSplit, right? I mean,
Correct.
we all, even if you PadSplit, you manage your own property. That's not the problem. So why you decide to not go with PadSplit, and what does PadSplit do that you said I'm just gonna do it on my own and not use that platform? So my audience can understand.
Yeah. So high level of PadSplit is a little bit similar to Airbnb, and then they go a little bit further with it, but it's mostly, it's 70% like a listing platform, and then also they do help you, kind of facilitate documenting, lease type paperwork, getting folks in, moving them out. So they're like 70% listing, and then maybe like 30% like helping out with a little bit of management type things. But yeah, beyond that, even if you are with PadSplit, you're probably going to be coordinating your own cleaners. That's one thing that we like to use with the strategy. So coordinating cleanings, answering tenant questions, resolving conflict, scheduling like community events if that's something that you do, doing your own remodels. Like all of that is still on anyone who does the co-living strategy. PadSplit will just kind of take that marketing piece and help out there. So the reason that we're not using them, one, they're not in our market. So they're not in every market. And they definitely weren't when we started. And to this day, I think that they're still not. But it's something that we found that we could outsource to a virtual assistant for, cheaper and have a little bit more control over the process. So I broke down the numbers the other day. I forget exactly what PadSplit's charging these days. But by the time we pay our assistant for, 6 properties, that she's helping to manage, it works out to be like 2 or 3% of the gross rents that we're paying for her to help respond to messages and list on Zillow and list on Facebook and these sort of places.
Yeah, I think PadSplit is 7%, and then they get 7% of the gross, and then the first 10 days once it is that way. I know they're still changing certain things, so there might be some new things coming up. But I'm doing my first one, and I decided to go with PadSplit just because it's gonna, it's easier. It's for me. I'm just getting a property that was in the market. I'm a fix and flipper here in Atlanta. I have buy and holds too, but this one was a fix and flip, very good property. I wanted to do co-living, and I said, let me just use the platform. So at least it's gonna keep me going, and then we can go from there and learn how to scale it. Because that's what you guys did. Because you can own 2 or 3, but you guys went and said, okay, let me develop a system and operations and marketing. Can you talk a little bit what did you guys do to change or go from like 3 properties to, you said 60 properties, and then how many rooms you say? I'm gonna write this down.
Yep. Yeah, we have 6 properties and 41 rooms.
41 homes. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So what did you guys have to do in order to scale for, from 6 rooms to 41?
Yeah, the big thing, it was all operations like type systems really. Like, acquisitions honestly still needs to be optimized a little bit and outsourced a little bit because I'm kind of the bottleneck at this point. So really what we did to get this far was to focus on the operations type systems. We're still buying one every like 2 or 3 months, and that's kind of all we're doing there right now. But on the operations side, it was getting very organized. I mean, none of this is like revolutionary necessarily. It's just a little bit applied towards co-living, but getting very organized as far as everything that I did, even whenever I was living in that first house hack. And actually, I'm still living in the second house hack right now. Like, I'm in the basement. We rent out 4 rooms upstairs, so still a house hacker.
Nice.
So it's a really great opportunity because you get to live in the community and figure out what works, figure out what makes people come together, what makes people come apart. So being here and realizing, okay, I'm listing on these 6 platforms. Which ones are working well? Where are people actually coming in? For example, like, and this varies by market, so don't take this as like as advice. But there's like one listing service called Roomster, and we were posted there, and we got a lot of people messaging us. But then whenever I looked at it, 0 of them ever ended up signing a lease with us, and it was a paid type service. So like while I'm in the machine, I can look and see where can we optimize. Like that's something that we cut. Whereas when I was in the machine, I could see that, oh, Facebook Marketplace, we're getting a lot of folks messaging us from there, and a large portion of them are actually signing a lease. Same with Zillow and Roomies. Those are our 3 like big ones where we find a lot of folks. Totally depends on the market though.
Right.
So sitting down and kind of building a funnel around bringing people in, I guess that was the first thing I did that was very helpful. So basically we bring people in the top of the funnel. Everything in business can be broke down into a funnel, and I think it should be if you want to do it at scale. If you want to do a one-off, okay, maybe you can, kind of willy-nilly do things. But if you want to get 3, 4, 5, 6 plus properties, you're going to want to systematize it a little bit into a funnel. So bringing folks into the top, and what we have them do is just fill out an interest form. It could be Google form, it could be something similar to that, but we literally ask the same exact questions that we ask on our application. It's just a free thing that they can fill out, and it's not verified information. So it's like, what do you think your credit score is? What do you think your income is, right? It's not totally official numbers yet that have been checked. But essentially what we can do with that is when someone comes through and it looks like they'll qualify, then we can message back, hey, cool, it looks like things are going to go well here. It looks like you could get in. Here's a link to the application. Let us know if you want a tour, that sort of thing. Versus them having to fork up $35 for an application when like the first thing, like their credit score is just too low. Like then we could have stopped the bleeding, from the beginning and not wasted everyone's time. And then we go down from there. Tour, sign a lease, move in, and there's a lot of, tips and tricks in there. But
so you have a property already, you have two empty rooms, so you go there, maybe do a paid ad on Facebook, for example, right? And then they go in there, and then you have a little thing that you say, if you're interested, fill this out.
Yeah.
So at least you can get whatever they said. I mean, they can say their credit score, and then if this is going to be a good fit for you, you move forward with them, right? But at the same time, you're keeping all their information on your system. Is that how you do it?
yeah, and that's a good point. Yeah, data is key, like for any business, especially at scale. So this is something where, maybe one big benefit of having more than just like one room, like, listed, like at any given time, we probably have like 4 or 5 just like across the portfolio. So anytime that someone sees a listing and they go fill out that form, then they'll also be in our system for anytime a new room comes available, they get an email. Because maybe they thought they liked that one room and then they go tour it and like they didn't like it, or maybe, I don't know, something else. Well, we have 5 other places. So when something comes up, probably 20% of the time, or maybe like 10% of the time, someone who's on that list is like, oh, I actually like this room better. And they'll go to that one when they had already left. We were already out of their mind, but we brought them back into our business,
Nice. And who are they? Like, is there a niche that you go after? Who comes to you guys and want to rent your rooms?
Yeah, so this is market dependent as well. So I'll talk about my market, and then I'll talk about what other markets may have. So in our market, we're a big military market. We have 2 Space Force bases, an Army base. We have the Air Force Academy too, although we don't necessarily rent to them a whole lot. But anyway, so we're about 50-60% military members, which is, in my mind, like the best resident that you could have, because one, well, there's many reasons, but one is they get a basic housing allowance. And in our market, that's around $1,600 a month. So like the military gives it to them, like, hey, go pay for your rent with this, basically. And our rooms are around 800. So like it's a total win-win. If you do the strategy right, it helps the investor, and the owners, it helps the resident. So like these guys are saving, $1,000 a month, tax-free, just by staying in our room instead of going and renting, a 1-bedroom apartment, which here is about, $1,600.
Because your competitors would be the 1-bedrooms, right? Tell me, and how do they come to you instead of, going and get their own 1-bedroom? pricing, I'm sure, right? And then how is the process that's going to make it more enticing, right? Because I know with PadSplit, you don't need to put too much money down. It's like if you rent one bedroom, you have to put security deposit, comes with all of those things, and tell why people come and decide to rent a room instead of getting their own. Besides the money, the cost.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's almost exclusively cost, and it does depend on how you run it. It's like you could have no security deposit and those sorts of things, and that probably depends on your market as well. Here we do have a security deposit. It is probably lower than it's usually lower than one month of rent, so I guess that is like a bit of an enticing
Okay,
piece
yep.
as well. But I guess beyond that, it is for folks who are looking for more like of a community type vibe, and people run their businesses differently. I guess that's one thing I will say about PadSplit. Like if you look at their marketing, they're often like advocating for turning like living rooms into bedrooms and reducing community to like reduce like potential tenant conflict. Personally, we actually want to do the opposite. We have the living room and we want to introduce community and foster community. We have like, host pizza nights and barbecues and stuff like that. Because at least in our experience, we found that, when someone moves into a room and like a random house, they don't necessarily know the folks typically. They're going to be kind of like shuffling around the hallways and like trying to avoid and dodge and like not talk to anyone.
That's good.
But I mean, it's just kind of how it is. But as soon as you like provide that opportunity for them to meet one or two or three other folks in the house, like over a slice of pizza, all of a sudden now they feel like they're at home. They're more likely to stay longer. Like we spend $50 on pizza a quarter, like per house, and if that makes one resident stay like 3 more days, like it's paid for itself. So when you know your neighbor, like you want to you want to stay in the place that you live. So I guess that's one way that we've kind of differentiated is building that sort of community there.
And so what is the minimum that you guys rent for? Like, is it like PadSplit, like you do a few weeks, or you guys do a longer leases?
Yep. So in our sort of market, it's 6 months, 6 month lease, and then it turns month to month after that. Some markets, you might want to be shorter. Like if you're in a more like, really what it depends on is, I guess I'll go back a little bit. It depends on the type of renter that you're going to rent to. So like I said,
Right.
in our market, it's a lot of military. The other half or 40% of our portfolio is the classic, just like lower paid person that's still like a great person. Like we have social workers and elementary school teachers and like security
Oh,
guards,
love
like those
that.
sort of
Love
folks.
that.
Yeah, it's that's kind of like if you listen to folks talk about midterm rentals, they often talk about traveling nurses. I feel like the lower income worker is kind of like the traveling nurse for this strategy. It's like the obvious one that you can go after that's in abundance and like could probably work in most markets, which is great. It makes if you have all the community vibes and you have the the rent that these folks can support, it kind of makes you feel good ethically and morally. Like I'm providing actually affordable housing. This is a real solution that should be a part of this affordable housing pamphlet that the government produces at some point that will save everything. This should be part of that.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
and
so
that goes along to like people talk a lot about regulations. How can
yeah,
unrelated people live in the same rooms? But if you can have people, different people, unrelated, live in the same room without the government have to pay for anything, right? Like
yeah,
not the military case, but no government money. This would solve a lot of problems, right? Because I see a lot of people talk about co-living, pet split. Like some people go, they want to offer a space for people to do to common area so everybody can get. They want to emphasize a sense of community, which I think that is gonna make whomever is moving in. I think that's gonna. I want to stay here a couple of days more. That's gonna create more of I don't want to leave. So that's really nice that we can do that when it comes to housing and solving a problem, right? A massive problem, I think. So, and I think the way that I see like co-living is still so new. Like you're saying you still, you've been in it for 3 years. You feel like it's still something new, right? So I think it's the best opportunity to get to the market, for us as real estate investors and say, hey, let me try this strategy, right? It's something that I can, I can scale. I can do one, I can do two, I can do three, or even if I have a short-term rental or a midterm that's not doing that well, but I have furniture. So for those people that are thinking about like, okay, how can I get an asset that I already have, that, a middle term that's already furnished, or an Airbnb, what do they need to change, either operational or everything else, or market, to be able to do co-living? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that look for more cash flow, or even long term, right? People that hold long term properties.
Yeah. There definitely are some, benefits to converting existing properties in your portfolio over to co-living. I mean, one of them is like a reduction in seasonality. So there is still seasonality with co-living, but it's not to the degree that like short-term rentals have, for example. So depending on your lease length, like if you're doing something like 6 months, you can time these things to where you skip any seasonal type portions of the year.
You're
So
right.
like we do have more difficulty filling up a December, January
Winter.
type time
Yeah.
frame. Yep, exactly.
It's the same as long
So if you
term.
have them, yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah. So like if you have them locked in
Rental.
to, past that period, or, get them out just before that period to get someone else new in, that can kind of help there. But yeah, so if you are converting an existing property, there's a couple things to be aware of. So one, if you bought the property that you want to convert in these like 6 to 8% like type interest rate environment, like within the last like few years, it will be a little bit tougher, because we're usually seeing that we need to have 6, 7, 8 bedrooms to make these things cash flow at these sort of interest rates we've seen over the last couple of years. Whereas if you bought them in 2016, or whatever, back towards the 3-4% interest rate, you can probably have 5 bedrooms and cash flow better than you are today. But to get to that 6, 7, 8 bedroom level, you have to have a very specific property there, and you just probably don't have it in your portfolio. Like we're looking at usually 800 listings on the market before we find that like perfect property to buy today, because it has to have enough square footage to get 6, 7, 8 rooms while maintaining the living room. It has to have enough parking. So that's one thing to look at as well. That's the
Ooh,
first thing.
yes.
Yeah, like
Yes.
the properties that you currently have, first thing that you can do if you're considering this, you might be able to throw this strategy out of your mind in like 3 seconds if you go look at Google Maps, and essentially we're looking for a parking space for every resident without having to park in front of someone else's house. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
So you could be corner lot, you could be it could be like a 4-car garage or a 3-car garage. Of course, that'll help out. We'll park at neighbors' side yards, like across the street. If there's like a house, kind of turned sideways facing the other way, and they have a fence along it, like we'll park there. We just don't want to park in front of their house. So I would check that first. But if you have good parking, if you see that you can comfortably fit the number of rooms you need to cash flow, while maintaining common, living room like type areas, then yeah, I think it is a good strategy to convert at that point.
Okay, good. Yes. So we gotta get. So what kind of market do you usually go? Like do you are you guys going out of state, or are you guys staying in state? How you guys are doing when you gonna look for market and do a market research? What people need to have in mind?
Yeah, so I'll caveat this by saying all of our properties are in Colorado Springs right now, but we're doing research to buy in other markets. Like as we speak here, we're going to select one within the next 7 days. So maybe bring me back
Nice.
on in like 2 weeks and we'll talk about it again. But
Yes.
I've, I've been thinking about it a lot. So I do have a lot to say, and we've been actively in this process. So if you're looking for a market, first thing that we look at, well, maybe not first, but there's a lot of things to look at. First thing that we look at is renter affordability. So going after that, like traveling nurse, type renter, like the classic renter for this is going to be that low income type person. So we're looking for markets where the median, income versus the 1 bedroom apartment type price, where there's that things start to get strained. So for example, in Colorado Springs, we found that you need to make at least $60,000 a year to comfortably afford a 1 bedroom apartment. And so the way that you kind of do that math is most personal finance experts will say that you need 30% of your income going towards rent or less. So whenever you look at that, if you did,
It's
$60,000 a year, yeah, times 30%, that's about what a 1 bedroom is here. So what that means
Wow.
is in our market, like 30% of people are below that threshold. minimum wage is like you would spend 70% of your income on a one bedroom apartment. And like that's what people do because that is usually the cheapest thing that you can get, right? So first off, looking at markets to find where that gap is severe. That's a good indicator. You can look at age as a demographic. That can be another indicator that's helpful because you're probably going to be serving the 20-year-old to like 32-year-old is kind of the span that we usually see.
Okay.
If there's a target renter that you like a lot, that you sympathize with, maybe you used to be an airline pilot or flight attendant, or you currently are, like that's a group that you could go after that's, useful for this strategy. Military is one of them. Low income is one of them. Even like 10 to 20% of our renters, or I don't know, probably closer to 10, is just like guys in engineering who graduated and they're just trying to save a ton of money. Like it's like very specific, but like I mean that was kind of my position. So like, if there's a group that you identify with and you're like, I really would have appreciated this at this age and I think other people would have too, then you can go look for cities that have that base of employment and, of course, find properties that are near those bases of employment. So anyway, that's just like a couple of things that you could look at, but there's, of course, much more.
Yeah, and then your houses or your beds, like, is it female, male, or do you have any difference? Or tell me about how you do the if you kind of say, this house is just for female, or you just wait organically whomever wants to come in and rent.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to approach this. So personally, yeah, we're doing the organic type approach. We just make sure that there's good people coming into our properties, like our screening process. Really the biggest thing that indicates this is their rental references. So a lot of folks don't contact them because it is like kind of hard sometimes, but we do put a lot of work in to get in touch with rental references. So once we talk to their last 2 or 3 landlords, all of a sudden we do know if they're a good person or not, or it's a really good indicator.
Okay.
So by doing that, we just know that good people are coming in, which is really helpful. But honestly, I do see a world in which we have, more properties, and then it does start to make sense to, funnel people towards certain properties. You just have to get you have to be careful about it because it can be seen as fair housing discrimination. If you're like, hey, you're a girl, here's a house with mostly girls, like go check that out. Or, based on, any other, sort of identifying type factor, it can be discrimination. We have had folks message us and ask, I'm a girl, like, do you have any properties with mostly girls? So, like, at that point, okay, you're just asking me a question, like, of course I'll answer. But that is because we're using leases. Colorado allows unlimited number of people in a home. Colorado, Washington, and Oregon are the 3. Yeah, so, which is really smart because we have an affordability issue. So, like, like I said, this
That's
helps.
awesome, right? Those are the states considered to not be landlord friendly, but they are very friendly to the house, for the house affordability in co-living situation. This is awesome.
Exactly. So if you are in a state though where, and I'm no expert on it, but if you're using the membership agreement type strategy, which I won't comment on a ton because we haven't had to do it, but
Right.
there, my understanding is maybe you're a little bit able to be a little bit looser on fair housing, and you could say guys house, girl house, but I'm not exactly sure. That's kind of what I've heard.
Because it's like a club, a membership, or like you're part of a club and you get to use the house, right? Like I've heard of that too.
Especially if you're having it set up like, okay, I have 6 houses. You have access to all of them. You'll pick one to be like your home base or your primary club or whatever. In that case, I see where it would be a little issue if you're like, yeah, you have access to all of these. Here's what each of them looks like. Now pick which one you want to go to most. Oh, there's girls, guys, age, those sorts of things who probably come into factor at that point.
And like when you vet somebody, so you put a tenant or a resident or a member into one of the house, my first question, what if it doesn't work out with the rest of the group, that person, or that person, it's not even because it doesn't work out, the person's just not doing what they're supposed to do. I don't know if you guys have, I don't know how they do everything, like, because I've heard so many things, like people say, like, I'm going to be doing my own dishes. Some people don't put dishwasher, which I think it's kind of crazy. But, like everybody manage the ways they want to manage. But what works for you in that case to avoid conflict? And if you need to I'm gonna say kick somebody out.
Yeah, yeah.
How do we evict somebody? Is it, like, is that an eviction? What is the process? At least for where you are.
Yeah, so yeah, there's different ways to do it. We take everything off the tenant's plate that we can, or the resident's plate, just because we do want to make it a super seamless, smooth experience. And honestly, we're getting a lot of income on these properties. Like, renting to a traditional family would be like 2,000 a month, and we get like 6 to 7 by doing this. So we have the margins to kind of take things off of their hands and make things smoother. So yeah, things like I haven't heard of too many folks doing this, but we provide like all the shared supplies for the house. So toilet paper, paper towels, trash bags, dish soaps,
I'm doing
dishwashing
that.
fluid. Yeah,
I'm doing
yeah, and
that
that
on
one's
my
great.
PadSplit. Yeah.
I think people get scared of like the logistics of it, and honestly, I don't know what the advice in the industry is because I haven't heard of anyone really doing this, or not a lot of people anyway. But what we do is just we have a supply closet that the residents have access to, and we just have a QR code on there that when they're running out of toilet paper or whatever, they scan it, and then it's just like 2 questions. It's like, what property do you live at? Oh, okay, blah blah blah, Main Street. And what are you running out of? Batteries, toilet paper, trash bags, and they click that, and then we just order it on Amazon, and it shows up 2 days later. Like, and on the Amazon, like for the name, we just put resident put in supply closet. So like it shows up, the label tells them what to do, they put it up, and we're good to go. So that's one thing that's helped. Having a cleaner on a monthly basis is what we do. If you were renting
the
to like
cleaner,
college students, maybe you'd
yeah,
want more often, but
does the cleaner come in and does she cleans inside each room? Like you let them know, hey, she's gonna be here at 10 a.m. And then if they don't want the service, they just keep the door locked. But how does it work when the cleaner comes in?
yeah, so by default, we just do the shared spaces. So living room, kitchen, any shared bathrooms, hallways, that sort of thing, laundry room, those sort of places. But we do have built in like an optional service, like, hey, if you want your room cleaned as well, we can tag that on, and it's like $20 a month or something.
Right.
And no one has ever chosen to do it, ever. Out of 40 tenants, no one wants to pay $20 a month to have their room cleaned. So I spent time like developing that feature, and then no one wanted it. So maybe not worth the time. But it is, you do want to have eyes on your property, I'll say. You kind of have a little bit of a built-in security system because you have 6, 7, 8 people there. So like if someone does have their girlfriend over every weekend, someone's going to tell you eventually. Like if they're there like full time. But we do like to have third-party eyes on it as well. So the cleaners do get eyes on the shared spaces, which is useful. But to get eyes on the rooms themselves, we do quarterly maintenance walkthroughs. So we have our handyman go through, and he has a whole checklist to do, swap AC filters, check for leaks under sinks and do that sort of thing. But also he goes through and videos the entire property, shared spaces, bedrooms, the whole thing, and we notify the residents, of course. And then it's something we can totally review remotely, right? Like it costs them $120 to go do this thing. And now we have the video to look at. We can see if anyone's being super messy and attracting roaches or whatever. And he'll also fix other things. So it's been money very well spent. Like on the last inspection that we did, he noticed like 3 leaking toilets in one property, and I got the water bill, and it was $1,000 for that month. And so we would have had another $1,000 one had he not caught it, during his inspection. So it saved us a little bit of headache there. That paid for the next like 10 inspections. So
wow, it's amazing. And I know, at least here in Atlanta, because I have long-term rentals, and they, sometimes it's leaking. I go there and then I charge the city. They give me a credit for whatever the cost was. Isn't it amazing? I was like, wow, this is awesome. But it is a big cost. If the tenants don't tell you, you're going to be paying, especially now, because we, as far as the co-living, we are paying for the utility bills, right?
Right.
So how do you do with, for example, AC or heater, or how do you make sure that they are not open up their doors or windows, because when it comes to, if you're not paying for the bills, you tend to not really care, right? Like, how about dishwasher use or wash and dryer, just washing one t-shirt? How do you do you put in a house rule something that if it goes above something, or how do you guys go around to help to keep your costs low?
Yeah, I think it's something that we just build into the numbers. The utilities are going to be higher than they are if we're just renting to one family, or even if we were renting to five, like very, very responsible people. And like, I think that's just par for the course here. Everyone's not going to be super responsible and mindful of any sort of resource usage. So it's just something that we build in. There's not any house rules around it because, so like there's certain things that residents can tell us about, like, oh, this person's doing this. They're not necessarily going to know that someone's keeping their window open, right? Like that's not going to happen. If our handyman did notice, we could mention something about it at that point. But no, it's just built into the numbers of the analysis.
Okay, yes, that or else it's too much, right? It's too much.
Yeah.
If you notice the bill go up a little bit more, you can always send a message, a communication, and go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let me ask you something. Just wanna see how are you? I know you get partners, right? So how are you scaling? Are you using loans or DSCR loans, and if you're doing the if you're having partners, how do you? What kind of structure are you building to get them to own the property with you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we are using partners to scale. So that's kind of our like source of capital. So personally, even whenever I did have my job before I quit, a few weeks ago, we could afford, 5% down per year to like do a house hack, which is great. Like perfect starting place. Like I said, like that it really is where you should start. But beyond that, we couldn't afford 20%, 25% down to like buy non-owner occupied properties during that year in addition to the house hack. Yeah,
Okay.
that would have been much of a stretch for us. So instead, we did start bringing in partners that bring the cash for down payment, remodel, closing costs. So they bring the cash for that. And then my responsibility is, finding the deal, doing the acquisitions piece there, getting it locked up, managing remodel, managing residents, doing bookkeeping, a lot of the more like day-to-day type things. And then we're still both involved with larger decisions like, hey, this remodel's going over budget. Should we cut this, bathroom expansion out? Or should we, roof's about to go bad. Like, are we ready to, take this on as an expense? So we'll talk about those sort of things still. So they bring that initial funding for the down payment. But then we do still have a loan as well. We are using, DSCR loans. Typically, we're doing 20 to 25% down. Lending standards started getting tighter, and we had to move from 20 to 25%. Now I've heard that we can kind of go back to 20%, but we haven't quite done it yet. But of course, less cash you need, usually the better for your ROI. So some pros of the DSCR, very easy to do with partners, I'll say. Like we have, a partner who's retired and she just gets Social Security income. Like, okay, she has assets. She doesn't have a lot of income, so like it makes conventional a little bit tougher there.
Right.
Also with conventional, you're probably gonna have to take the title in your personal name and then do a quick claim over, into an LLC that you and your partner are
Oh, you're
in.
right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, with DSCR, we can take it title straight to the LLC. No, don't have to get fancy with it. But there are some cons. The rate's a little bit higher. We're usually paying like about a point higher. So like right now, if conventional is 6, we're probably gonna be around like 7 or 6.75 or something like that. And then the thing I don't like the most is there's a prepayment penalty. So by default, it's 5 years, and all the prepayment is it says, hey, if you get rid of this loan for any reason, if you pay it off, if you sell the house, there's going to be some fee that you incur. Or if you refinance, that's the big one for us. So usually we get a 3-year prepayment penalty. And so like right now, I would love to refinance some of our 8.5% interest rates down to like 6,
So,
whatever I said, 6,
I wonder
but we can't.
how it happens. Yeah, because I know purchase with the SCR is not that difficult, right? As long as
Yeah.
it underwrites for rental, long-term rental, you should have no issues. But how about when you refinance a house that in some cases you go from 6 rooms to 8 rooms, or maybe you build another bathroom. So how
Yep.
do you do refinance?
Yeah, so we're not super experienced with this, but we have a little bit of experience with it. So in the house that I'm standing in right now, we went from 4 bedrooms to 6 or something like that, and we didn't refinance it, but we pulled a HELOC on it. So they did send an appraiser out to do an appraisal at that point, and the appraiser comped it as a 4-bedroom. So what I was hoping for is we would get a bump in value, like okay, now it's more usable, that sort of thing. We still have living rooms, like it still looks like a normal house. It's just like we turned an extra sitting room into a bedroom. And then in the basement, it was kind of like a game room and a bedroom, and we turned like the game room, into a bedroom. So I was hoping we would get a bump in value, but what she ended up doing was comping it as a 4 bedroom, which it originally was, and then she just gave us like a $3,000 credit for each room that we added onto it. So I guess not the worst, but I think if you were going the model of carving up the house like a lot, then you could potentially get like a loss in value because it's not very sellable to the typical family, right? So I mean that's what an
Right.
appraisal should be. It's like how much would a family buy this for? That's what it's going to be.
Yes. But all
Yeah.
your new bedrooms come with closet, like they are
Hmm.
considered bedrooms, right? Because some of my rooms, I don't build a closet. I'm just
Hmm.
buying a closet and put it there. I think that would be make it easier for the appraiser to come in and see that as a den or an extra sitting area. But it would be nice to get the extra, that
Yeah.
extra, yeah, that
Yeah, I think something similar in that vein. We haven't done it, but I've heard of folks, like taking the doors off of the rooms, and it's like, oh, this is just it could still have a closet and everything, but you take the door off, all of a sudden it's an office or a flex space or whatever because it's not a bedroom
yes,
because of the door being moved, right? So yeah, so if you added 8 rooms, you could have 3 flex spaces, and now it's comped to a 5 bedroom, just a really large. There's a lot of square footage and everything, but it would be comped to a 5 bedroom, which could honestly serve you better than an 8 bedroom.
yes, perfect. All right. So, thank you so much for your time. I could go on and on and on, and I might take up on your offer and have you back in a couple of weeks. And but tell me, like, how can people find you? Tell us a little bit about your book that you're writing. So exciting because there's not much out there. So tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so best place to find us is on my Instagram. So it's just my name, Miller McSwain, and that's MCSWAIN. But yeah, if you find us there, you'll see we post co-living content like 3 or 4 times a week. What's working, for our market, what's working in other markets, how are we finding markets, what operations type things are working. So definitely come there, and it's very informal, which is kind of what I like, to see how people are doing it in real time. Like, hey, we have a remodel going on, this is what it looks like, so nothing too crazy, just, packed full of good info. But yeah, if
Nice.
anyone is wanting to get started in this strategy, there's not a book about this strategy yet, which is kind of crazy to me, but there definitely should be.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
yeah,
Hurry.
so if you want to, yeah, I'm really
So
hurrying.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone is interested, you can DM us the word book on Instagram, and we can send you we have a list that we're getting folks on that we're going to send discounts out to whenever it launches in 2 months. So, yeah, 2 months away. So, go ahead and hop on there. And yeah, we'll get you set up.
All right, sounds great then. All right, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing. I'm learning so much and, wonderful what you're doing. And I'll talk to you later.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.